Wiedemann has been living off and on in Cairo for 15 years now. For him, this is a story, but it also has a very personal dimension. Ben's been struggling to do his job and keep his family safe in a city under siege. We had a chat about it. Ben, people watch our coverage and they see the big picture, the uprisings, a government under siege, but this is a city of millions of people and life is still having to go on, or is it?
Well, yes, and I'm one of those million people, and I can tell you that what we're experiencing here in Cairo is sort of life coming to a crashing standstill. The internet doesn't work. You go to the banks to get money out of the ATM, they don't work. Schools are closed, courts are closed. Basically, every normal function that you might take for granted doesn't work anymore. We saw this cell phone system go down, intentionally taken down by the government for 24 hours. It's getting very difficult simply to function beyond the actual workload that we're dealing with, Michael?
Yeah, and of course, the thing is, too, you're not one of the correspondents who duck into a place for 2 or 3 years and then move on to the next one. This has been home for you for years, so you're living this, and you've actually been reporting from home for a while. What's been the impact on your life?
Well, I'm really torn because of this situation. You know, the workload here is murderous. But I've got a family, and the family is in an area where there's been a lot of gunfire, there's looting nearby, and trying to sort of focus on this story that I've been working on for years, and at the same time making sure my family is feeling safe, feeling secure, and feeling that, we're doing everything we can to ensure that they'll be all right under these circumstances is really sort of putting a lot of pressure on me, to say the least, Michael.
I'm sure it is, mate. I mean, you were telling me the other day that you were awakened by automatic gunfire and then found out your son was calmly walking off to see the girlfriend, not bothered at all.
Yeah, well, that was the other day. Now, today we had a different problem. My daughter had to get her wisdom teeth removed. But, of course, the dentist really isn't working normally. We've known him for years, so I spoke to him, or rather my wife spoke to him, and he agreed to come in, and he removed 4 of her wisdom teeth. But here's an example of how things get complicated when normal life basically stops. I had to pay him about $700 in Egyptian pounds. But, of course, because I can't get the money out of the bank because the ATMs aren't working and the banks are all closed, I had to somehow figure out that it was all right with him if I wrote a personal check on a U.S. bank. But if he wasn't willing to accept that, I don't know what I'd have to do. Maybe offer to clean some of his instruments for a few weeks to make up for it.
Yeah, it's a great example of what it's like for everyone else who's living there as a citizen, as you are. What about those citizens in your neighbourhood? Are people worried enough to be, I don't know, heading to the countryside to see relatives or getting out of the country in your neighbourhood among people you know?
Everywhere. I mean, all my children's friends, Egyptians and foreigners, have essentially left. A handful are still in Cairo, but some are going to places like Sharm el-Sheikh, the resort on the Red Sea, where nothing's been going on. Today, the U.S. Embassy had vans going around the neighborhood, picking up American nationals and taking them to the airport. The same for people working for private companies. They've arranged charter flights out. And as far as my Egyptian friends and neighbors in the area, what they're doing, if they haven't, many of them have sent their families out into the places like Sharm, others out of the country, but the men and the teenage boys have stayed behind and are basically patrolling the streets day and night with some serious weaponry, shotguns, machine guns, revolvers, kitchen knives, baseball bats, samurai swords. Sort of a whole arsenal is on display in the neighborhood. They've set up barricades on every street corner, stopping every car because, of course, everybody's terrified of looters. Now, I have a friend who lives in a building that 2 nights ago, 9 times looters tried to get inside the building to ransack it. And what they did was they parked their cars literally at the front door so nobody could squeeze in. And some of the residents had shotguns, which they fired to scare the looters away.
Yeah, well, from Cairo to Alexandria, danger after dark in Egypt's second biggest city.
Yeah, rocketing.